Hey guys and gals, Malkuth 1974 back at you with another tutorial. This time I'm going to teach you how to get to the moon. If y'all are wondering, maybe you're not, but hopefully this will help you out. Now if you're in a campaign game, this is what I suggest you have for the minimum amount of tech research done already to land on the moon. This is mostly for beginners. You do not need this much. You could probably drop basic science, and you could probably not have general construction, but pretty much everything else you will need, and I'm going to explain to you now. Obviously you have your start research. Engineering 101 is going to get you on the road towards this line, which we need. Basic Rocketry is going to give us all our engines and all our fuel tanks that we need. You most likely could drop fuel systems and do it with the smaller FLT 400 tank, but again, I highly suggest not doing it. Survivability, obviously you're going to need landing legs, and for basic science we're going to need some rechargeable batteries, and of course we actually get some more science bits that we can add to our rocket before we can gain that very precious basic science. And stability research, the reason why this is an option to get or not is because it's not an option actually, because the TT38K radials are pretty important. Actually they are. You have to have those. The only difference is on this is that we have the TT18A launch stability enhancers. You can drop that. You don't have to have that to launch this vessel, but for you beginners out there, it's always easier to start off with a nice easy launch. So there you go. Another couple things you're going to have to do. You're going to have to upgrade your launch pad, and you're going to have to upgrade your VAB. And that's about it. Oh, actually, no. There is one more option that you guys have. The tracking station. Tracking station has orbits visible on map. Everything in the tracking station for the campaign game has to do with your basically knowing when things are going to happen. But I'm going to show you guys how to do this without any type of maneuver nodes or that upgrade. This is just a minimalist launch, and it's not that hard. We're going to build the vessel for it can get definitely to the moon and back, and you're going to have plenty of fuel to make any kind of mistakes. So I'm going to go into the VAB. Guys, now that we're in the VAB, let's start our building. So one of the first things we're going to add to our vessel is the Mark 1 command pod. Put that just like that. We're going to go right down to utilities and have the Mark 16 parachute right on top, just like that. Our next bet and our next option is that we're going to need a TR18A stack decoupler, and we'll go like that. I should probably cover something here for you guys. If you are worried about it, you can add your first heat shield if you want. You don't need it. If you find yourself burning up, then you might want to add it. It matters what version we're playing. Right now I'm playing 1.02, and heat is not all that of an issue. So here we go. Fuel tank. I'm going to go to the FLT400 fuel tank. I'm going to add that just like that. Then we're going to go to engines. We're going to grab the LV909 Terrier engine. Now we're going to go back down to utilities. I'm going to grab the LT05 micro landing struts. I'm going to hit X 3 times. 1, 2, 3. What is that's going to do is going to add symmetry mode, for we can add, we can add more than one of these. So 1, 2, 3, 4 is how you add it. And if you want to take it away, you can push down the shift key and push X, and that will go backwards, or you can go forwards. Maybe that'll help you guys out if you didn't know that. What we want to do here is that we want to actually make sure that these landing struts are going to land under the engine. Now what I mean by that is that if you set them down, you click them onto the part, and you right click the actual strut, you can see that you'll get this little toolbar thing that comes up. If you hit the button that says start retracted, it will show you how far they come down. In this case, they're just below our engine. That's pretty important, for we are landing on the legs and not our engine. Otherwise, the landing struts would be useless. So We could go on building from here, but what I want to do is that since we're in a campaign game and we need science, we're going to add one more part to our vessel here, and it's still in the utility tab. We're going to grab the new service bay, the 1.25 meter service bay. It allows us to put things inside the service bay and they're not going to be burned up on the way home or any other silly kind of notion like that. So what I did is I just added it to under the decoupler and the pod. I removed the engine, you can see it's still there, and then I just added the engine and fuel tank back. Last thing but not least is I'm going to add a couple of batteries. You can add as many as you want. I'm just going to add 4. Should be plenty for us to get into orbit and to keep us all nice and heated and safe and all that nice stuff. Alright, so I'm going to open the service bay and I'm going to go to the science tab and I'm going to grab me a couple of mystery goo containers. I'm going to hit that X again. I'm going to make sure I have 2. If you look down here, the symmetry mode, you can actually see how many parts are going to be put on when you actually place it. So 1, 2, I only want 2. You can add as many as you want. Now if we look at the service bay right now, we can see that the part is upside down. All you have to do is actually hit the S key, and that will kind of have the rotate button that's available in the in your options for placing parts. I'm going to place it down, and while I'm in here I'm going to grab a comms. I'm only going to put 1 of those. Remember, all this stuff costs money, so that's something. That's not what I wanted. I meant the 2 hot thermometer. Yeah, we don't want the comms. We don't want that. We'll go like that. So there we go, we have that. And while I'm here, I'm just going to add a communitron to here. Again, I'm going to push S. And this time I'm going to kind of cheat things a little bit. Not cheat, but I'm going to position this for when the service bay opens up. That'll just kind of pop out of the service bay and it doesn't clip into the part. Let's see if I can get this right. There we go. So there we go. So once I actually unlock that, or I send any kind of research that I get, it will actually come out that way. It won't actually go through the part. You can do whatever you want. It's not a big deal. Kind of mess around with the editor options. Another option for you to editing is to use the rotate offset. You can use this too. Just click on the part and you set the part, and you can rotate certain items to do your bid other than using the hotkeys on the keyboard. So there we go. Now we have our lander. While we're here, we might as well make sure that our separation stuff is right. So I have the parachute on top. I have this is going to separate our pod from our service module. And then we have the engine here. We're not quite that far yet, so let's get there now. I'm going to grab the TR-18 stack decoupler again. I'm going to put it like that, and then while I'm here, I'm just going to put these 2 together. So when you separate this, that's going to actually push the space. When you push the space bar, you separate the bottom stage from this stage. You're going to engage your engines at the same time that you separate. So here we go. Now I'm going to go to the fuel tanks. I'm going to grab an FLT800 and I'm going to grab 2 of them, just like that. My next step is I'm going to grab the LVT45 swivel and we're going to place that right under it, just like that. But we're not done. We're going to go to structural, and that's where the radial decoupler came into play. We're going to place it. I'm going to put it in just placing 1 for right now. I'm going to go just like that and kind of make sure that's where you want it. If you're looking for prettiness, you can set that up as you want. I'm going to go back to the fuel tanks. I'm going to grab another FLT800 and I'm going to place that onto the stack decoupler. Now check it out, make sure it's on there properly. It's not kind of offset or anything like that. Everything looks good. One more thing, I'm going to grab another FLT100. Now this is where things get crazy. You do not need to build it this high, but if this is your first time to the moon, you're going to want plenty of fuel for you don't have to do one of those rescue missions for the Kerbals. So there we go, you got that. And last but not least, we're going to need to add the engine, and we're just going to go right back to the swivel engine. That way we have plenty of control over our rocket. If you're wondering the difference between the LV-T45 swivel and the LV-T30 Reliant, the swivel has gimbaling in it, and the Reliant does not. Gimbaling allows your engines to steer for you. It's very important with the new aerodynamics that you have pretty good control of your steering. So I'm going to go back to structural, and I'm going to grab a strut connector, an EAS4 strut connector. It's right here on top. I'm going to grab it, and I'm going to connect it to just like that. The first part you click it on to the second part. If for you guys that are looking for visual beautiness in your in your vessel, the part that you start on is the part the strut will end on. Basically what I mean, if I go from here to here, when I stage this part, the strut right here is going to disconnect and it will not be connected to this part anymore. If I did it the other way, you would still see struts here after this disconnected. So if you're looking for a little bit of beautiness, that is how you do it. So now I'm going to go to aerodynamics. Very important in 1.0 that we have aerodynamics. I'm going to grab the aerodynamics nose cone. I'm going to stick it right on top just like that. So there we go. We got our engine and we can launch just like that. No, I'm just joking. We can't. So this is where we can use the symmetry mode again. I am going to grab it right at the radial decoupler. I'm going to pull the engine off and I'm going to push that X key 3 times again. So here we go. I'm going to actually set this up to be kind of nice looking. If you really wish, that is up to you. And we're going to go just like that. Alright, so now you need to put your radial symmetry mode back to 1. This is very important. This next stage is a very important stage. It's what's going to give us our efficiency when we are launching our rocket. I am going to go to the fuel tanks. I'm going to grab the FTX2 external fuel duct. Now what these do, that these transfer fuel from one tank to the other. So if I start right here and I connect it to here, during launch this fuel tank is going to feed this fuel tank. So in essence, this one will always stay full and this one will empty. Once this is empty, we can stage it and get rid of it, and then all we'll have left is this one. So what I am doing is been dubbed in the KSP community for a very, very long time, is called asparagus staging. So this is how we do it. We have 4 engines. When we launch, everything has to be in symmetry mode. When you launch, you want to drop 2 stages at a time. So how we do that is, just like I said, we go from one fuel tank to the other. So this fuel tank is going to fuel this one, and this fuel tank is going to do our middle one, our center stage. Just kind of make sure you get it there. I kind of missed it there. I kind of goofied, but that's alright. So there we go. So now this side of the stage is all set. So what we're going to do, so basically I went from this one to this one, and then on this engine that's being fed by this one, I fed it into the center stage. Now I'm going to skip over to the 2 that do not have any of the fuel staging on it, and I'm going to go do the same exact thing. From this one to this one, and then from this to that. So now our asparagus is half set up. The next thing we need to do is that we need to actually make sure that when we stage, the right pieces are coming off. So like I said, this one is feeding this one, and this one is feeding that one. So while we're in launch, this one is going to put fuel into this one. Like I said, this one's going to put fuel in that one. That means that this one's going to empty first. And it's the same way over here. This one will empty first. If you see, they are actually lined up. This is called symmetry. And then these last 2 are lined up. So what we need to do is we need to go to our staging here. We need to find our decouplers. And I can see them, just like that. And I'm going to click on this to open them up a little bit. And then I'm going to click on them again to unselect them. And now I want to find this decoupler, which is right there, and 99.999999% of the time the other one is this one, but I'm just going to double check to make sure, and there it is. So I'm going to click on the top one, and then I'm going to hit the control key and I'm going to click on that third one, just like that. Now both of them are green, that means they're selected. I'm going to hit the little plus key here, that is going to add an extra stage. We're going to bring that down, and bang, we are now staged. When we take off, these two will go first, and when they run out of fuel, and then these two will go next when they run out of fuel. The next important thing is that we actually need to have these engines all take off at the same time. So this engine is located right up here, so we need to bring that down. Now all these engines are correct. To help you guys out a little bit, I'm going to have you add a basic fin to all 4 of these. Again, we'll go into symmetry mode, and that will give us a lot more control while we are in launching, especially in the lower atmosphere where your rocket tends to want to flip over a lot. With the gimbal engines and this, you should be all set. You should not have any issues at all. And if I'm looking at this correctly, we should be all set. This is our rocket to the moon. Now, one option we have, again, is you can add more science parts if you want. Pretty much that's actually all the options you want. If you're a really hardcore guy, you can lower these engines. You can put the FL 400s in here if you don't want to use the 800s. And you could probably even make it without having any fuel up here at all. It's a little bit more difficult. You need more precise control, but other than that, everything's cool. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this down. If you're wondering how I grabbed that all at once without breaking that off, I held the shift key. Anytime you hold the shift key and you click on a part, it will grab the whole vessel and not just piece of the vessel. I'm going to put that down just like that. And I'm going to go into the TT-18A launch stabilizer part here, and I'm going to place these down just above the fins. You can set them up any way you kind of sort of want to, and then I'm going to make sure they're all staged together. So let's go through our staging. So here's all the staging. First time we hit the shift bar, we're going to launch all our engines. We're going to launch up. When we run out of fuel the first time, we're going to keep an eye on our fuel. We're going to stage again, and it's going to drop these parts. So we'll just double check that. Yep, that's what it drops. And then while we're going up some more, these two will run out. Keep feeding the middle tank. The middle tank will always be full. So once we drop these two, this whole stage will still have a full tank of gas. So pay attention to that while we are launching. So I'm going to check that out. Yep, there we go. We're all set there. And then, of course, we have the regular staging when we get to there and that. So there you go. Everything's cool. Looks good. I'm going to save this as untitled. Yes, we're going to override that because we don't need that. I'm going to go in my crew. I'm going to get rid of Bill. It's pretty important that you want a pilot in this. It's a one-man pod, and you want as much control over that as you want. If you don't have the pilot, if you have a scientist or an engineer, you will not be able to use any sort of flight aids like SAS or any of those cool things. You could actually add, if you go into command, actually I don't have it, so yeah, that's your option. We're still so early into the campaign that you need to do that. Alright, so here we go. We're going to go to the launch, and I'm going to teach you what you need to do next. Alright, so we're out here on the launch pad. We need to go to the moon. How do we get there? Now, in my case, I have no maneuver nodes. I have no anything to get me there, to help me, any kind of navigational aids to get me there. And maybe you're in the same position. So I'm going to show you how to get to the moon visually using the in-game cues. Now, this isn't as hard as you think. Trust me, you'll understand once we actually do it. So if we look at Kerbin, we are landed right here. I have another pod up here. I don't know why I have another pod up there, but he's up there. I believe that is Jebediah, but we're not going to concentrate on that right now. Right now, I'm going to concentrate on our spacecraft. We're landed right there at the Kerbal Space Center. What I need to find next is the moon. The moon is right there, so it's behind us. What I want to do is I want to launch my vessel when the moon is just on the horizon. So right now it's behind us, so I need to do some time acceleration. If you don't know how to do the time acceleration, it's the period and the comma key. The period key will go forward, and the comma key will bring you back. Hopefully you know that by now if you're trying to get to the moon. I would hope so. So I'm just going to fast forward a little bit. I'm going to get the moon to be positioned almost on my horizon. Pretty important you get this pretty accurate. Doesn't have to be completely accurate if you have a maneuver node, but if you're not using maneuver nodes, you don't have them researched yet, it's pretty important that you get this part right, or you will not be able to get onto the moon when we launch. Alright, so now I'm on the horizon. So if I actually looked over here, it's not there yet because I left it just a little bit under the horizon, but that's where the moon's going to be. If you guys watched my other game, my other video about how to get to orbit, or how to get into space orbit of Kerbin, you should already know how to fly a vessel. I'm not going to get too much into it. So the difference between what we're doing now and what you usually do when you do an orbital type of flight, when you want to get into orbit of Kerbin, is that you would want to circleize Kerbin. What we're doing here is that we're flying straight to the moon. So I am not going to orbit Kerbin, and I'll show you. I'm just going to keep burning towards the moon, and that's where not having the maneuver nodes comes in very handy. This should get you there. So just keep it. At this point, I'm just going to put it on the the prograde circle, and I'm going to keep flying. Luckily, we still have these circles that represent our current orbit to tell us where we are. So you can tell I am extremely growing in my apoapsis. It's growing very, very much. What we want to do in this case is, since we're not going to get any warning that we're going to change orbit, we don't have that option yet, I'm going to get this at AP to land right on the moon's line, this orbit line right here. I'm going to keep going, let that go up, and I'm going to slow down just a little bit. I'm going to just kind of force it in there slowly. I push the X key to cut the engines totally. And I'm going to make sure these kind of meet up just like that. Now you do have a little play here. The further away from the line you go, the closer you'll get on your first orbit. So, but since we don't actually have the thing telling us where we are, I suggest just putting on the line a little bit, or just a tad over. You could push F5 if you want, or you can quick save it and see if you actually get there or not. We'll find out in a second. This is where most of the time you should get pretty close. Let's look at our fuel. So you can tell I have plenty of fuel left. That is good. We're going to use that fuel to actually get us into orbit and maybe even start our landing. So I'm going to fast forward here. I'm going to keep this on, and there we go. So now I'm in orbit. Again, if you have maneuver nodes, you can do it that way, or you can do it this way, and you'll get there. Every time you launch, when the moon is on the horizon, you will get to the moon, as long as you did what I just did right there. And if you look at our PE, I'm at 71,457 or something. That's perfect. That's actually kind of perfect. But it's not perfect for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower that a little bit. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to go to this little blue thing over here. I believe it's this one. It might be this one, or it might be the opposite one. We'll find out in a second here. I am going to click on it. I'm going to put my mouse on the PE to see where it is. Yep, so it is that one. And I'm just going to give myself a little speed, and I'm going to lower it down to 50. There we go. hit the F5 key again for, you know, maybe no, it could be a bug that might infect you, or you might want to keep trying this, practicing it. I'm going to hit timed acceleration, and what I want to do is I want to get as close to this P as possible. Again, I don't have maneuver node, so I can't use a maneuver node to get me into orbit. I'm going to stop it right there. Now we need to go to the retrograde. So that's the prograde. We need to go to the retrograde. We want to burn retrograde, for we actually are burning toward, it's just, trust me, just go to the retrograde. That way our orbit on the moon is going to close. So I'm going to start my engines once I get to retro. Full speed, and I am going to get there. Bang. 40, 55. That is perfect. We are now in orbit of the moon. If this is your first time to the moon, that's awesome. If you've done like a pass by or something like that, well now you're in orbit. So there you go. So now we need to actually land. And if you look at my fuel, I still have plenty of fuel. We want to keep the stage as much as possible. So we're gonna actually use it to help us land. And once it runs out of fuel, we're gonna stage it and it'll crash into the moon, and we don't have to worry about it anymore. And then we'll have plenty of fuel to get back home, to take off from the moon and do all that. At this point, you guys can land really anywhere you want. So it matters when you get to the moon and what stage the moon is in when you get there. I usually like to land, for you guys on the first try, it's the perfect thing right in here. And unfortunately, one thing we do have to worry about is our electric charge. So if we're going to do a lot of time acceleration while over the moon, turn your SAS off. That way you're not using any electric charge, because we don't have any, I don't have any solar panels, so the only way I get electric charge is to use my engines. And both engines do give electric charge. They do have alternators on them, so that is an option you do have. So what I'm going to do is I am going to, well, I'm too close to do any time acceleration. So, yeah. Alright, well, where can we land then? Oh, there we go. Sort of time accelerating now. What I'm looking for is this crater right here. It's kind of in the dark side right now. Maybe when you got here it wasn't in the dark side, but unfortunately it's on the dark side when I got here. So I'm gonna make sure that gets into the light side of the moon, and I'll be right back. So there we go. I was looking for this crater. You can tell it's basically right in the center of the moon. It makes a good first landing spot. Gives us many options. If we look at my electric charge, we can see that we still have 448. Of course, this is vanilla, so there's nothing really sucking up anything to take all our electric charge. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get my vessel into position to start its retrograde burn to land. And how I'm going to do it is I'm just going to get a little bit of distance. You guys can do this anywhere you want. As long as you're somewhat close, you'll be all set. So I'm going to start right here, just right before the AP. It's probably actually better to start on the AP, but I have to turn my vessel here, so I'm giving myself a little bit of time to actually do this. I'm going to go to the retrograde marker, which is right there. Again, the retrograde marker looks just like that. There's the 3 little tongs in it, and it has like an X inside of it. I think it actually is a plus, but we'll see. So I actually want to land in this big large crater. So a good rule of thumb, I'll put SAS back on. SAS is done by the T key, by the way. You should probably know that by now. Alright, so I'm going to give myself some speed, use the shift key, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my marker lines all the way to the lip of this crater. And once I have that all set up, I'm going to fast forward it, and I'm going to wait till my vessel gets to this other end lip of the crater, and then I'm going to stop, go like that. Now the landing I'm going to teach you, or I'm going to show you to do, is one of the reasons why I gave you so much fuel. It uses a little bit more fuel than doing what is called a suicide burn. But I'm not going to teach you guys a suicide burn. You can probably figure that out if you just think about it. But right now, I'm going to turn my engines all the way up to this notch right here. This is like the 1/3 mark. And what that's going to do is that's going to slowly bleed away energy of our speed. So that's what we're doing. When we're burning retrograde, we are getting rid of as much energy as we can. Now this is going a little bit fast, so I'm going to actually slow it down a little bit. I'm going to actually put it halfway in between the 1/3 and 0. And the reason I can tell that is because I still have such a high orbit, and I'm still kind of, you know, these engines are pretty powerful, so you can kind of play around with it a little bit, but the whole point of it is that you probably want the engine to last as long as possible for you not using all of your fuel. There we go. Just going to basically wait until this engine actually runs out of fuel. If we look at where we're going to land, it's pretty important that we also try to pick a spot to land that is somewhat flat. And what these lines mean right now, I'll shut down my, I won't shut it down. What these lines mean right now, if I was to stop my engines right now, that is where I would actually end up landing, minus rotation of the planet or the moon you're on. So I pretty much want to try to land a little bit inside this crater, and I can do a few adjustments while I'm landing. If you guys just want to take the risk and just land wherever you want, you don't want to mess around with things, I can teach you a few tricks of the trade. If you want that line to stop moving, all you need to do is bring your marker above the retrograde a little bit. What that will do is, you see now it's not creeping as much. If you want it to go faster, if you want it to cut, if you want it to actually go faster than it was, you go below the retrograde marker. Another option is, I do kind of want to get inside of this crater a little bit. So another option you can do is you can move it a little bit. Now I'm going to move this one by going down a little bit. And what that should do is that should kind of rotate that a little bit. If I turn my engines up a little bit, no, actually I was going the wrong way. See? Even I make mistakes. That's fine. So I'm going to go this way. And if you can see, that actually is making my marker go down. Actually, I ran out of fuel. So there we go. We're going to stage that away, and I'm going to go just like that. We can see I'm kind of turning. Again, I want to land on flat. I don't want to land on a slope, because then you're going to risk crashing a little bit. So there we go. We're fine. I'm going to turn my engine on just a little bit, for I'm barely losing any speed. We should be all set with our landing now that I have it all set up. It doesn't look all that flat there, but who knows. Hopefully we are all right. So there we are. We are on our way to a ground landing. Again, that was the map mode. To go over that one more time, if you go above your retrograde marker, you'll slow down this thing moving right here. If you go this way, it'll speed it up, and if you go to the left or right of it, you'll actually move the marker a little bit. Now the farther away you do that, the more control you have over it, so that's something to keep in mind. That is how you can do precision landings, if you all are wondering. Checking my altitude, I'm at 6,600. As you can tell, I still have my engines on. What I'm trying to maintain is that I am not gaining any speed. Again, I've given you plenty of fuel to do this. This should not be a huge issue for you, but it's something to keep in mind, that if you are short on fuel, you can stop your engines, but you're going to gain speed, and you're going to have to use your fuel anyway to slow down. So I'm just going to keep my eye on the landing here, make sure everything's going good. I'm going to actually fast forward. Now you guys don't have to fast forward. I'm just going to do it because I don't want to wait. I'm impatient. I need to get close. getting down, closer, closer. When you do that, of course, everything's good. So a good rule of thumb of the retrograde marker is to learn that it also is indicating your horizontal speed. So I'm going to put my gears down now. Come on. And I'm going to turn this up because we are getting closer to the ground. I can tell by visually looking at it, and plus by looking at that. I am going to get my, till it says 0, bang. Now we're kind of in a free fall position. We're falling straight down. So what I mean by it's also telling me my horizontal position. See how we're right over the very top of the nav ball right now? Well, it's going to creep around a little bit, and what that's going to be telling us is that your horizontal speed is moving a little bit away from you. So when you're on the ground, that means you're moving horizontally, and the way to correct that is to just kind of move towards the little retrograde ball there, and it'll actually flatten you out a little bit. So we go. We are actually getting closer. I have my speed set again for I am not losing or not gaining any speed, maybe even losing speed. I do have to keep adjusting it a little bit. It is fine. We're not actually at 1800. You can tell that we're actually pretty close. We can see the shadow. Once you see the shadow, that is a good indication of where you are in your landing. I'm at 8.5. This is where people usually mess up, but I'm going to turn it up just a tad, and I'm going to slow it down a tad, turn it up. There we go. Slow it down. You want to land as slow as possible for you don't tip over. There we go. I almost tipped over. We are on an incline, so no matter what I just did there, I was still on an incline. It's hard to tell when you don't have, mods to tell you where you're landing and all that stuff. That's why if you land at the slowest speed you can possibly land at, you most likely won't tip over. You can correct it on the moon if you do tip over, but that's a whole nother episode, and we won't get into that right now. Try to land upright. If you don't land upright the first time, that is fine. So when you take off from the moon, you take off from the moon the same way you take off from Kerbin. You take a 90-degree turn. That would be the D key with your thing. So if we're looking at the nav ball right here, you see that this is a little orange line right there. That is north, and our 90-degree mark is right here. So when I actually take off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my engines up, and I'm going to put myself at a little bit of an angle, and we'll go like that. And put my gear up, and now what we're doing is that once we get into orbit, we'll still be in the same rotation as the same angle and the same rotation as Kerbin. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my map view. I'm going to see what my height is, and once I get to, you can do this at any time you want. I'm just going to start now. I'm going to start actually doing all my basically gravity turn, but it's not really the same on the moon. One thing you do have to keep in mind is that you want to keep your fuel pretty safe. I would like to get this to 30,000 meters. Watch my fuel. I have plenty of fuel. 17, 18, 19. I'm going to level it out a little bit more to make our periapsis come up a little bit. Periapsis is still buried in the moon. And then we'll finish it once we get to orbit. So I'm looking for a 30,000 meter thing. This will save you fuel, trust me. Don't go any higher than you have to. You could probably even do it in any even lower. So there we go. I'm gonna fast forward it. I shut my engines off. I'm gonna get close again, and I'm gonna turn my engines back on. Again, I do not have maneuver nodes, so I'm a little bit too far out. So there we go. I'm gonna actually try to go full speed this time to get that periapsis up as quick as possible. There we go. So I got to 29 and 31. That's actually pretty good. So there you go. I got just under half my fuel left, which is plenty to get back to Kerbin. So how do you get back to Kerbin, especially if you do not have maneuver nodes? If you have maneuver nodes, it makes it a little bit easier because you can do it all in one burn. I don't think I can do it in one burn. I'm not that good of a guesser at this, but let me teach you a little bit about orbital mechanics. If you want to burn towards an orbital body, and this goes for interplanetary changes. The best way to do it is to burn while your vessel is basically facing the planet you want to go to. So in this case, we're at Kerbin. So what I want to do is I want to start my burn right in the center here, right here, and I'm going to burn away from Kerbin. Now you might say, what the hell are you doing? Trust me, it works. What it's going to actually do is that we're going to burn away from Kerbin, and we're going to get out of the moon's orbit, and we're going to go into Kerbin orbit, like up here. So it'll be up like this. We keep burning away, the periapsis is going to shrink until it reaches Kerbin. What I would want it, if you have a maneuver node, you can actually see this. If you do it right now, you can actually see how that works. But we don't have a maneuver node, so I have to explain it to you. So if you keep burning and burning, you'll actually get into where you can do one single burn from the moon to a re-entry of Kerbin. Now it's going to be a lot harder for me because I don't actually have the ability to see that right now. So I do have to wait until I get into the center here. I'm going to have to guess. So I'm just going to fast forward it. And that is good. Go just like that. You can tell we are still doing fine with everything. That is the retrograde marker. We don't want that. That's the prograde marker. You want to burn prograde in this example. And then I'm just going to start my engines up. Oh, at least I thought I was. Okay, there we go. Shift key, damn it. Shift key. So as you can see, we are burning away from there. And this is where you not having the conics, I believe that's what it's called, to tell you when you changed orbit. I can't really tell where in if I had the actual upgrades in the game, I could actually see where I was in the orbit of this. I am going to guess. So I'm going to go just like that. You do not want to go to an escape velocity. I'm not quite there yet, but that's fine. We'll just quick save it. All the engines are stopped. So watch this. We're going to leave orbit of the moon in a second here, and then it will update for us. So there you go. Now you see, if I would have kept on going, I could have got my periapsis all the way down there. But now I actually have to wait till I get to the AP. Again, if you guys don't know what these mean, the AP is your apoapsis. That is the highest point in orbit. And your PE is your periapsis, and that is your lowest point in orbit in meters. So I'm going to get there. And I missed it a little bit, but that's fine. I am going to finally get my PE. I want to bring it down. So basically, I land here. Now again, we didn't put a heat shield on our vessel. That is fine. The heat, if you're worried about it, or if you're having, maybe they changed it during this the making of this video, it is not an issue. I'm going to bring this down to about a 12 meter entry type situation. And you can tell I still have plenty of fuel left to do other things if I need to. I have energy. And so we're going to get to the moon here. Get to the Kerbin here. Wow, I'm getting tired. I think this has been a long video. I wish I could shorten it a little bit. But again, it's one of those videos where it takes a while to do what you want to do and to teach it and all that hoopla. So we are landing in nighttime. Oh, that's so not cool. I'm going to lose this stage, my service module. Goodbye, service module. And what I'm going to do is, not quite sure why. Oh, I know why. I don't have that. So, retrograde. We're doing re-entry, so we want to make sure that we are burning retrograde, or we're facing the retrograde. So, your blunt end of your vessel that has the heat shield is actually facing the way you're going in. That way you don't burn up and die. 1.02, do not use parachutes to slow you down or you will die. I always keep my SAS on because I don't trust aerodynamics at all to keep my vessel straight. This is up to you 100% how you want to do it. I am entering at a very high speed, but I will not burn up. Promise. Promise. If you're worried about it, just add the heat shield that we already have, and you'll be all set. You can see I am slowing down to 1700. I haven't burned up yet. Told you I wouldn't burn up. Even in 1.0, you would not have burned up. 1.02, you will not burn up. 1.0 plus that I can't guarantee. So if you know you're going to burn up, make sure you add the heat shield. Remember, this was made in 1.02, where heat reentry is not really much of an issue right now. There we go. I want to keep an eye on my altitude meter. Do not let your parachutes go too soon or they will break. You do not want them to break because that would be bad. I am going to wait for a little bit for we're not dealing with anything. I'm at 10,000 meters. I should be over the ocean. Am I or am I not? I can't tell. It's dark. Yeah, I am. I'm over the ocean. So this is sea level altitude thing, so this is correct for us that we're over the ocean. If we weren't at sea level, this could be off just by a couple thousand meters, so keep that in mind. I can see the ocean coming up. I'm at 220. These will not open until 500 anyway, so I'm going to wait to 1,000 meters and I'm going to open my chutes. That way I'm not waiting for 72 minutes for this thing to land. Oh, here it comes. It's so scary. It's so scary. It's not scary. I'm going to actually hit it at 1500. There we go. Chute is going to deploy at 500. It is slowing us down. 500. Chute is deploying. We are down to 250. 190. There we go. Everything's good. So there you go, guys. That is how you get to the moon in Kerbal Space Program 1.0. It really hasn't changed other than the atmosphere, but hopefully I've updated my old video, updating all the videos for all this stuff. Hopefully it helps you guys out. If you want to get to Minmus, I will do a video on Minmus too pretty soon, and we'll get there. So we'll just kind of wait until we actually land to end the video. Bam, we're all good. So there you go, guys. This is Malkuth 1974. Have fun getting to the moon. Malkuth, out of here.